whatever. Yeah, sure.
Awesome. Great. Thanks. So the one area that I'm very, very, very interested in talking to you and your organization is in the area of private bank licenses. And your colleagues
Hmm.
sent me three attachments. One was a bank license in Puerto Rico, one was in Dominica, that. I wanted to get a sense from you on each jurisdiction has its own advantages, but it also has its own disadvantages. Puerto Rico, as an example, is considered a United States property, that. And so if I was going to do
Right.
something bad and wrong, as an example, a judge
Hmm.
could say you have to give up your bank. I'm just making that as an example, as a disadvantage. But advantage of Puerto Rico
Sure.
could be
Sure. I
that
mean, if it was, let's say, registered on yourself, then yeah, sure.
100%, 100%. But like in Dominica, as example, which was another area where your colleague sent me a private bank license, I could, if I wanted to, set
Hmm.
up a corporation or a trust in Panama, and I could have a
Hmm.
Panamanian citizen become the trustee of the trust, who would also become the director of the
Hmm.
Dominica bank license. And so the advantage there is a US judge wouldn't have jurisdiction over something like that. The disadvantage is there's no FDIC insurance, there's no like this, and each jurisdiction has its own advantages and disadvantages. I wanted to take a minute of your time and
Hmm.
ask you, from your perspective, if I may, what are the advantages and disadvantages of each jurisdiction from your perspective, if I can start with that question?
Sure, absolutely. So let's just quickly run through those licenses. Just
Yeah.
in general, let's just start with Puerto Rico. A good advantage is that the share capital deposit and is contributed. I think it's around 600,000, 650,000 USD is significantly smaller than alternative jurisdictions. So that is an advantage. It's not sizable, but it is still an advantage. Another thing is that, of course, there is the direct Fedwire connection, and all the U.S. banks, well, since it's considered the U.S. territory, are
Uh,
more likely to, let's say cooperate. Go ahead.
sorry, you said the direct what? What direct what?
I was saying that you can connect directly to Fedwire. So
Okay.
for ACH payments and let's say local US payments, it'll be a lot easier if you're based in Puerto Rico. Same thing is that if you want to handle, let's say, cash or you want to cash checks with the partner banks in the US, it's definitely going to be significantly simpler for you. That's in terms of general day-to-day banking operations. So again, that's the intention here. It's well,
Now,
it's a
now,
big advantage.
yeah. Now,
The,
my interest and my clients' interest in private bank licenses. I have a YouTube channel, by the way, on this. So I've done a lot of videos on this. Is to get a private bank license that's connected to a central bank. So that's 650
Mhm.
that you mentioned. In my scenario, I would love the 650 to be deposited with a central bank or Federal Reserve. Therefore, the private bank, the day it's
Mhm.
open, so the day that we buy the private bank, the next day or next week or something like that, we get a line of credit at 10 times multiples. The 10 times multiples is the part
Mhm.
that's strategic.
Sure. So in turn for that, then certainly I guess Puerto Rico will be the, let's say, jurisdiction of choice simply because again the capabilities of the Dominican Central Bank or let's say FSU regulator are will be limited compared to those of let's say Puerto Rico as a separate jurisdictions and
Sure.
of their credit lines with the U.S. So again that's gonna definitely play a role in deciding what jurisdiction to go with. Dominica, what's good is, just to give you a brief description of why that it has become such a hot jurisdiction, simply because the million share capital deposit can be done in crypto, it can be done in stable coins, it can be, let's say, just shown and on a notarized document that these funds are available. They don't actually have to be deposited locally in Dominica. Then, secondly, their regulators, let's say, more or less flexible in comparison to that of Puerto Rico and let's say more serious offshore jurisdictions, simply because, well, actually last year they discontinued their IBC program simply because that was not making enough revenue. So they're actually heavily focusing on licensed financial entities and banks. Therefore, they are, let's say, profit oriented rather than compliance heavy, if you see what I'm saying. So That's certainly an advantage for transactional banking activities. And again, so the filings are going to be simpler. The process is going to be simpler. I mean, it's going to be less formal, and this is just from an operational standpoint. So that's from our experience of having completed these licenses. It's not going to be it's not public information where they're going to tell you it's an easy process. But yeah, from our experience, that's the case.
Understood. And then the Puerto Rico and the Dominica, can I get sorry, so you said Puerto Rico, I'm assuming it's day one, I can't have the crypto opportunity, but I can buy a crypto license to add to that Puerto Rico license, can I not?
Sure, absolutely. You can register with a central bank there and work with crypto, accept crypto deposits. It's not really a problem. They're just, it's going to be a formal process, and there's going to have to be reporting done on those, let's say, crypto related activities. Whilst in Dominica, it's going to be quite a lot more flexible, so to speak. So that's
Got it.
yeah.
Got it. So you have flexibility. And then what was the third jurisdiction? Dominica, Puerto Rico, and then the third one
I
was,
believe the third one was well, we have a few more, but I think the third one you probably received offers for was Belize that we
Belize.
recently
Yes.
started offering. So
Yeah, Belize. You're right,
yeah.
Belize. And I was thinking, Belize, really? Because I know, just so you know, I used to have an investment property in Belize that was shared with other people. I know how easy it was to put money, send money to Belize, but man, it was so difficult to take one penny out.
Well, I mean, again, Belize is a more established jurisdiction compared to Dominica, so doesn't really have any additional tax advantages. It's going to be a more formal process, and perhaps it may be slightly easier to obtain correspondent partners. But the capital deposit is smaller. It's 500K. But again, there's not going to be many additional advantages of having it in Belize rather than Dominica. I would strongly recommend Dominica simply because we do have a great connection with the central bank. Uh, so yeah, we are close partners with one of the ex-presidential advisors in Dominica, actually. So he does help a lot with that. He's retired now, but yeah, he used to work there directly. And it is a more streamlined process. With Belize, it is a standard offshore jurisdiction. Again, you have zero taxes. I mean, it's quite easy to register companies there. Unfortunately, with the thing with Belize is that it may prove a little bit difficult, just kind of sending all the documents there, and the back and forth may not be as quick as well. So, but again, it's not a complicated process.
Got it. Okay, so that's a, and then and by the way, how come you don't talk about New Zealand or other popular offshore jurisdictions? Like I know
Well, you
Australia.
see, the thing is that go ahead, sure,
No, go ahead.
sure,
You
please.
please.
Oh, sure, okay. So the Australian and New Zealand markets, I
Yeah.
wouldn't say that we have too much presence there, simply because I don't know, we've not had too much demand in terms of company formation or let's say requests from those jurisdictions. The only time that does come up is that businesses are looking to expand there, and that is not a common request that we receive. However, I mean, I can speak to our partners that we have there.
Yeah. No,
I
no,
I would not be able to recommend them in terms of any tax advantages or any, let's say, operational advantages that you may receive from having a bank license there. The only thing is that if you want to process, I mean, yeah, if you want to process local payments, have local clients, then again, that's the place you should be.
I understand. Okay, so and then Dominica, how much cash do I need to start with?
So you mean the price of the licensing
Yeah,
price, total
yeah,
price, or you mean the deposit?
both.
Both. So Dominica, the deposit is 1 million euros, and that can be shown as assets of the ultimate beneficial owner, right? So that can be shown as a bank account balance, that can be shown as notarized document, let's say notarized valuation of a property. Again, they're pretty flexible with this. They will at one point they'll request these funds to actually physically be shown. So whilst they can be in the form of assets to begin with, they will need these funds to be shown, let's say, on the balance sheet of the bank, right? So
Sure.
that can be done in a multitude of ways, where an account for this bank can be open with a regular, the funds can be sent in, then sent out for business expenses and operations of the bank. So that it is not a locked fixed deposit like in certain European jurisdictions. They are very flexible and, let's say, client oriented in this, even as a regulator. So yeah, in the fees for Dominica, I will let me just open up that file on my computer so I can tell you exactly. 1 second. I believe it is in the range of 250,000 euros. So that covers all the regulatory and compliance fees. That covers all the setup of all the business operations. So, like, let's say, renting an office, hiring a compliance officer, hiring a local director, because you will need a local, well, let's say, nominee director just to represent the company locally for filings and just company upkeep prior to license issuance. Then that does indeed cover all the licensing fees and, of course, our fees, as well as, let's say, establishing basic accounts for the banks to start operating.
And then can I receive standby letters of credit or banking instruments?
Well, again, so the Dominican infrastructure, you will, so that whilst the central bank does allow for that, as a bank, you will have to do that through a correspondent. So, I mean, of course, once you connect to Swift through a
Yeah,
correspondent, once you have
yeah.
Swift level 1 membership, so you get your BitCode, you get Swift level 2 membership where you have, let's say, a direct Swift account and you can issue IBANs. Then once you are integrated in the Line 2 system, once we connect you to the correspondent bank inside the Line 2 system, you can indeed receive standby letters of credit, and you can receive basically use all the functions, all these, let's say, Swift functions that you may need from the correspondent partner. So it's not going to be that complicated to connect you to one of the larger offshore banks like CIBC, someone like that,
Yeah.
and work through them, or in RBC they also have offices in Dominica, and yeah, through them you will be able to accept and, it would say, issue standby letters of credit. So that's not a problem.
Oh, so okay, so can I just tell you what I understand and what you're telling me, just so I know I understood it? So I
Please.
understand there's like $1 million in form of assets that I need to show, and at some point, that licensed bank must own that asset, hold that asset at some point. And I appreciate that. I understand there's a 250K I need to pay in terms of the licensing fees that takes care of you. I'm assuming, this is the part I'm assuming, I need to pay some additional money to get some capabilities to the Dominica bank license. And then what I understand in my conversation with you is that the bank license connected to central bank. I understand that there's a 10x multiple, which is what I'm looking for. So if somebody gives me a $10 million line of credit, if somebody gives me a $10 million standby line of credit, assuming that I have a corresponding bank and I'm connected to the central bank, the 10 million goes to the central bank. And then my bank license gets a line of credit at 10 times multiples. So I get a $100 million line of credit because I've technically given the $10 million sum of credit to the Dominican bank. It's a Dominican central bank, assuming there's another assumption here. The standby of credit is from one of the top 20 banks in the world, and it's now from the no-name Bank of Africa as a comparison.
Sure, sure. Yeah, just you've understood that correctly, and just if I can, let's say, sharpen up the explanation a little bit. So if once we connect you, let's say, to a top bank in Europe, or let's say in America, doesn't matter, then you will be able to receive that standby letter of credit there as a correspondent partner, directly connected with them through the Swift Alliance Light 2 network. And then you can indeed transfer that to the central bank of Dominica. That's fine. So just to.
So I can still get the 10x multiple, yes, using an SBLC.
Well, I mean, absolutely. I mean,
right. Okay, cool.
Absolutely. So, yeah.
Okay, so now here's another question. Assuming so we move forward,
Please.
we pay all the monies that we need to pay, we got the bank license. Tell me, what does day 10 look like? Day 10 is now I have the bank license, I have a compliance person. Now, what does that look like? Like, I go to the office, and what is it that I'm going to hear? What is it that I have to deal with? Like, what does day 10 of me owning a bank license in Dominica look like for me?
Sure. That's a great formulated question, by the way. So, sure, absolutely. In terms of your requirements as a bank, you don't, if you intend to have it as a, let's say, private bank and process let's say, financial instruments and work with them, Uh, Again, in terms of your reporting standards and requirements, yeah, you basically file accounts. You file detailed accounts of which clients you have collected KYC for and issued accounts to. You file assets, well, the bank assets where let's say flow funds, and basically the filings are not too much different to any filings that you would have for any normal company. The bank filings are not that complicated, to be honest with you. In terms of your local presence, you will need to spend maybe 2-3 thousand euros a month on upkeeping a local Dominican office, plus your director and compliance officer, which are again just there on paper to be for the regulator to just see that you have some sort of local operations. Again, nothing too critical. That can all be arranged. And I'm just assuming here that the bank is not, let's say, operating fully and sending transactions every day, because for that you will of course need to have your own team. And again, that the sky's the limit, and you can have as many people as you want, or as little people as you want. So if we're just going off what you told me, the required let's say things that you need to do are quite limited. Again, you will just need to file your accounts annually and pay a renewal fee. I think it's like $10,000, maybe $15,000 annually for just renewals. And yeah, that's it actually. So if you don't plan to have any local operations, don't plan to have a bank branch, you'll just have to have a small registered office and have one compliance officer and director, which may or not come to the office every day. And yeah, a few $1,000s and just a yearly fee. That's it.
Got it. Do you know anybody who has this private bank license? They've already gone down the road and they're open to having a shareholder to come in as a business partner. So that way I don't have to be the one dealing with the compliance or the regulator or things like that.
We do have a few clients who have bank licenses in Dominican, and um, I would need to check because all of them are, most, or at least 90% of them are running the bank in a transactional manner. So they're actively onboarding clients, they have bank branches. They're slightly running a different business model to what you intend to do.
Yeah.
However, well, again, the guys that are basically have the same modus operandi as yourself, they are all, let's say, they most likely would not be open to anyone else coming in, since simply because they have a closed-end bank with maybe 2-3 clients and a few trade finance instruments that they work with per year. So therefore, for them, I don't know how much sense it would make. But again, I will speak to them and see perhaps anyone is happy to sell a ready-made structure, or yeah. So part of it. So again, we'll have to speak to them.
For sure, great. May I have your permission to show you a couple of videos very briefly, 1 minute each?
Absolutely, sure, absolutely.
I'm assuming you can see my screen or something.
Yeah, sure. If
Okay.
you can share your screen, yeah, sure.
Okay, here we go.
And it is about working. Okay, so this conversation is a follow-up to our Panama conversation, and it is about working with 2 central banks. Andres, am I correct to say 2 central banks? In 2 different regions of South America to help our clients leverage from 10x multiples that central banks offer private banks. And what this offers AFG and my VIP clients that I'm working with is they don't have to go get a private banking license, infrastructure, compliance, regulator, all that. It skips all of that because now we just have a joint venture with I shouldn't say Andres with you specific, obviously with you, but specifically with Ronaldo and all of the banks that he oversees, that he allows us to partner with like that. And I think that's like super, super, super exciting for access to capital, wealth creation, monetizing assets like that. Carlos, you're the lawyer here. Am I correct to say that?
So I just want to put a pause on that one. I just want to show you that. I just want to show you one other one very briefly, if I may. In Ecuador.
Oh, please go ahead.
That's part of our. Okay, Han, you're the owner of a bank in Ecuador. That's part of our South American expansion for All Funds Global. What I understand is our rent to rich uncle program where we can help clients and get access to capital internationally. They have to have an account in Ecuador. Asset has to be in Ecuador. All funds global goes to your corresponding banks to put money up. By currency deposits through your bank. The client will put money, our fees goes into an escrow account with Ronaldo's escrow services. And then we go and we buy currency deposits, and then you provide the loans to the clients. Am I correct?
Yes, as long as.
Okay, cool. So about a month ago, I went to Panama City to meet a firm. This firm does audits. They do audits, they do trust, they do tax, that. This firm introduced us to banks that they're auditing. They're auditing these banks. And that's how I met all these bank CEOs. I don't have a Rolodex of bank CEOs. This firm did we met like 15 bank CEOs. And each bank CEO was in a different jurisdiction.
Wow. Okay.
One was in Cayman Islands, one was Ecuador, like they were all in different jurisdictions. What I learned from the bank CEOs were, Taimour, why are you interested in a private bank? And why are you telling your clients to set up or buy private bank licenses? Why don't you partner with us? Right? And I was like, okay, partner with you, interesting. And so the video that I showed you was a bunch of, I want to partner with you conversations that I thought was fascinating for me. The benefit of a partnership is I don't have to hire a compliance person. I don't have to deal with a regulator. I don't have to do reporting. Somebody else is dealing with all that stuff. And that's what they do. And every time we deposit money, it will deposit with a central bank. There'll be a 10x multiple that comes off in terms of a line of credit. But the person who's in the bank has to have a benefit from it. Like they're not going to do this for free, right? So maybe we give them 2x of the 10x, and then we're responsible for 8x. I thought that was interesting to think about. But then like I'm kind of like trying to talk to you to understand, is it worth me just owning a private bank license for myself and my clients and get everybody to own a private bank license, or is it easier to partner with somebody who's already doing the private bank license? And then just to make your life interesting, if you allow me to make your life interesting, last Monday, I flew to Montreal, Canada, and I met the CEO of a company called JD Euroway. And that CEO told me that he has not one, but 3 bank licenses in 3 different jurisdictions that does a 10x multiple. So what he's doing, you deposit $100,000 with a central bank in jurisdiction A. His private bank is line of credit, which is now $1 million. He takes the $1 million out. He then deposits the $1 million in another central bank in a different jurisdiction, and then he makes that $10 million line of credit. He takes that $10 million down, he puts it into a third jurisdiction central bank. He now makes that $10 million into a $100 million line of credit. So $100,000 turns into a $100 million line of credit. And he's telling me that he set this up. And I'm thinking, is this even legal? I didn't even know you could even like that. And here's the guy. So I'll tell you what I did. I came back to my office. I had an FBI guy, a former FBI guy, do an investigation with the JD Euroway people just to see if there's any lawsuits against them, if they're legit like that. And we couldn't find one lawsuit litigation against JD Euroway, and they're registered with SEC and FINRA.
Okay.
So then I'm thinking, I'm like, I'm thinking,
it's definitely an interesting operational model. Sure.
Yeah, I'm going to talk to you about it. I'll bet you you don't have one client. I don't think so. Maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong here. I don't think you have a client that came to you and said,
no, sure. I haven't come across that now, to be honest.
Yeah. So
can you such an effect? Yeah, sure.
Can you, and maybe if you like, I can set up a call between you and the CEO of JD Euroway, his name is Fritz. Is it possible to replicate that for me? So I don't come to you for 1 bank license. I come to you with 3 bank licenses and 3 different central banks. but you need to promise me or show me how to get 100, 10 times multiples.
Sure. I mean, certainly, if that is a working operational model, then we've certainly having 3 banking licenses, we'll be able to accomplish that.
And then the other version of this was, can I find 3 best friends? 3 friends that already.
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, yeah.
And then figure out the what's in it for you piece, like what's in it for them piece, right? To do that. But I thought that was a conversation I really wanted to have with you. So when I was talking to your associate, she wasn't technical. She wasn't banking technical. So that's why I was like interested in talking to you specifically to see what you think about this madness.
It's certainly an interesting operational model. I'll tell you that. I've not come across that. But so finding one partner bank was possible. Finding 3, I think we'd struggle quite a bit with that, to be honest. But
Okay.
one for sure, maybe three will be more tricky.
Okay, so now I want to ask you the next question. Next question I want to ask you is that, so I understand the services of your organizations to set up bank licenses. I understand you can set up trusts as well. Am I correct to say that?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. We assist with setting up anything from just a basic business company structure with an office, bank account, so on and so forth, to setting up trusts, fund licenses, crypto licenses, gambling licenses, payments licenses, banking licenses. And the list extends,
I love
as
it.
much as the imaginations of our clients. So yeah, sure.
I love it.
All sorts of complicated structures. It's kind of what we do.
I love it. If you do all these things you do, I think you and me are going to do a lot of business together, and I'm going to be your worst pain in the butt. Excuse me for saying it that way, because I'm probably the one who's going to say, Anthony, you said on May 11th, you can do my imagination. So let's do 3 central banks. Here's the example of one guy.
Perfect.
All right, they're doing it. Why can't you help me do that? Anyways, we'll skip that conversation for now. But okay, so I want to go back to other stuff. Okay. Standby letters of credit. So right now, if you check out my company, All Funds Global, I help companies get letters of credit at a discounted price, and I monetize the letters of credit with a different bank in a different jurisdiction. So example would be a business owner in Tanzania that wants financing, project financing, and they need $20 million. Like a local bank in a third world country like Tanzania doesn't have $20 million to give you. They just don't. So what that market does is they go to alternative funding industry and they say, can you give me a standby of credit at a discounted price? Can you monetize it at a different jurisdiction and allow me to make a spread and charge me a fee for doing that? So we help companies do that, if that makes sense. One of my biggest problems, one of my biggest challenges is that there's a lot of fraud in this industry. People that issue standards of credit, people that claim they can issue standard of credit, people that can monetize standards of credit like that. I don't know if that makes sense. The way one
definitely we've definitely encountered such cases, and out of let's say maybe 10 interested clients, well, usually you are right, they come from third world jurisdictions, these kind of requests, or Eastern Europe is also quite common. But yeah, we've dealt with such cases. I'll put it that way. But again, I do agree with you in the sense that there are there's a lot of, let's say, misleading information, or let's call it attempts at defrauding each other in this industry. So yeah.
Sure. Okay, cool. So my next question to you is, one way that I can control this a little bit better is to set up an account with the bank that's issuing the standby of credit, let's say HSBC London. I'm just making that as an example. And then and then set up another account with the monetizing bank, with the receiving bank. And I'll give you an example, Royal Bank of Canada. In the world of credited instruments, HSBC has a high credit rating compared to RBC. So RBC pay more money for a SBLC from one of the top 20 banks, if that makes sense. Like that, right?
Yep.
So is it possible for you guys to offer a service where I give you the list of the top 20 banks that I want to have accounts with, but it cannot be a saving checking account. It has to be a commercial account, something that has a global master account on it. For you to charge me a fee to help set up those accounts, and my business intention, just so you're clear on what I'm trying to achieve, is that when an SBLC wants to get issued, I call the banker on the issuing banking, the credit department of the issuing bank, like HSBC, and I'll say, my name is Taimour Zaman. I'm a client of your bank. Let me show you my credentials. Then I show them a contract between me and the issuer of the SBLC, like a joint venture contract. And then I ask for, can you show me the instrument has been issued? And then I can call the receiving bank, let's say RBC, and say, hey, let me show you my credentials. I'm a client of the bank. Can you show me, and here's the contract with a monetizer, with the company that's receiving to pay for the letter of credit. Can you show me if you've received it and authenticated it? Like, that's the agenda, that's the business intention I have. And basically what I'm trying to do is control both ends, if that makes sense. Is that a service you guys can offer to open up accounts for the top 20 banks?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me just explain in a bit more detail. That short answer is yes, but in more detail, these I would doubt that we'd be able to do that in one single jurisdiction. So let's say I wouldn't be able to do that for you if you choose the UK, to have it in all those top 20 UK banks, simply because, you know, they're, even if we have a local company, again, some banks may not like the business profile, you know, some banks may reject the account or delay the account opening. So my recommendation is that, and the third thing, and the most important, is that we will definitely not have contacts in all of those banks in the same jurisdiction. So it is possible, at least let's say the top 10 or 15 in different jurisdictions. Let's say you will have like Citibank in Hong Kong, and let's say another one, and HSBC in Hong Kong, 2 accounts in Hong Kong, and then maybe 1 account in the UK. It will be scattered around the globe, but it is possible.
Okay, good. So how about as the next step, I do this? Can I send you one email? So I use a lot of law firms in my business. Like the way that my business operates, I don't have people walking into the door saying, Taimour, I'm going to give you $20 million. I don't, like, unfortunately, that's not how I run my business. So for me, I always have to work with law firms. So at any time, I'm working with multiple law firms at any given time. Can I send you one email and I'll CC one of the law firms I want to work with, and ask you to maybe look at how to open up accounts, and this law firm will give you the funding that you need to open up those accounts, if that works?
Sure. Let me just jot this down. Let me make a note of that, just to yeah, sure.
So
no problem whatsoever.
give me 1 second. I'll send you an email right now, just because I have that email ready to go. Use Ellie for this.
And just so I understand, what is the quantity of accounts you need, just to kind of better understand it?
Just one. So one with Barclays, one's Wells Fargo, one's for
Okay.
like Citibank, like that. But just so you know, my agenda, I want you to be clear on what my intention is, my business problem is, like that, and how I'm using a structure with you to solve that business problem, if that makes sense.
So absolutely. I've just received your email, and yep, everything's good. I will reply to you shortly. No problem.
Okay, so that takes care of that. Subject account, SBLCs, you said I could do. I understand what day 10 looks like. Okay, I want to stop this recording for now, if I may. Give me a second.